As I've said in previous videos I've made about Helluva Boss, the series is, when you boil it down, a study of social psychology that is populated by supernatural creatures. In other words, in this world, the supernatural abilities are not uncommon. They're nothing special. The more powerful a demon is, the higher their classification within hell is. It's basic demonology. Classification of demons within this world is something that plays a big part within explaining how the world works. It's clear that there is a hierarchy within hell. That's obvious. This is hell, after all. And whenever you have a story set in an Abrahamic setting like this, it is expected that the audience has a basic understanding of what hell is. In religion and folklore, hell is a location or state in the afterlife in which souls are subjected to punitive suffering, most often through torture as eternal punishment after death. Stolas himself is based on the demon prince Stolas that commands 26 or 25 legions of demons in hell. His duties and skills include knowledge of astronomy, precious stones, and the effectiveness of herbs or poisonous plants. Though if you don't know your demonology, a lot of this is presented visually in the show instead of narratively. As in, his duties haven't really played a big part to the narrative of the show yet, other than the grimoire that Blitz steals from him, of course, which he could have conjured back at any time, and was made a moot point when the Asmodean crystals were introduced to the story. So much for that exclusive access to the living world, huh, Blitz?
Well, luckily for you, thanks to our company's special access to the living world. Now someone please tell me that fancy book is still intact!
You mean our only ticket to the other side? Yeah, got it.
Stolas uses said grimoire to blackmail Blitz into their, arrangement, so now we know the Asmodean crystals exist, Stolas can give Blitz an out, thus ending their arrangement.
This inn has a business he runs. He needs to access the mortal realm to carry out his work. I know your demons are some of the only ones who can traverse freely and legally. I was wondering if you could assist me in finding a way he could too.
Yeah, this was confirmed in episode 6 of season 2 that this was Stolas' intention, but I still say that the Asmodean crystals broke the show's narrative to me, which I cover in detail in another video. So for now, let's focus on Stolas. Unlike IMP, Stolas is portrayed in the show as a pacifist for the most part. Instead of taking Stryker head on, for instance, when he tries to assassinate him, he instead flees until he is inevitably caught. He is more of a guide than a fighter, but that doesn't mean he isn't dangerous or powerful, though why he didn't just turn Stryker to stone like he did to that one imp in episode 2 of season 1 is beyond me. If you establish a character has a power in literally the second episode of the season, don't just forget about it in a later episode when he is in danger. If you establish that your story is set in hell but your characters can literally die, and not only that but be assassinated, 2 seasons into the show I'm starting to wonder what's the point of having this set in hell. Have it be set in any fantastical world instead of hell, and the story wouldn't really change all that much. Imps can be hurt and killed, demons can also be hurt and killed, so once again, why is this set in hell if this is the case? Hell is supposed to be a realm of eternal suffering. If you can die in hell, then it's not eternal suffering, is it? Stolas himself can get hurt and also killed, and Blitz is shocked by this for some reason, even though he literally stopped Stryker from assassinating Stolas in episode 5 of season 1.
Well, I'm not a fan of someone I offered a job to about to off my easiest lanky ticket to Earth behind my back.
This moment right here is not emotional or gut-wrenching, it's stupid. It doesn't make any sense in this story, and it doesn't make sense for Blitz not to know Stolas can get hurt when he literally prevented Stryker from killing Stolas in a previous episode. But as I have said in previous videos, the biggest problem with Helluva Boss and Hazbin Hotel is that we have to go to supplemental material to get answers to questions about basic world building. Saying it's hell, no one cares is not an answer to me. Saying that Stolas is a demon so he can't do anything is also not an answer to me. It doesn't mean his powers don't have to make sense. If the rules of the world are not explained, then it means the powers a character has within this world will also not make any sense either. What I didn't consider, and what you guys pointed out, is that Helluva Boss itself is technically supplemental material for a show that, at the time of recording this video anyway, hasn't even aired yet. And we are only 2 seasons into the show so far, so there's still time for the world building to be set in concrete. But you would expect it to be set in concrete by the time we get into the middle of season 2. So of course the rules are going to feel a little flimsy and confusing. And I have been told that the world does make sense if you pay closer attention, so maybe I'm just not paying attention, or I'm told to just enjoy the show, don't think too much about it. But I can't do that when there's so many inconsistencies when it comes to Stolas' powers. Has-Been and Helluva Boss rely heavily on the audience's willing suspension of disbelief. It's part of an unspoken contract. The writer provides the reader, viewer, or player with a good story, and in return, they accept the reality of the story as presented and accept that characters in the fictional universe act on their own accord. It doesn't have to be realistic, but it does have to have believability. That believability is broken when the rules that the world are set in are inconsistent or confusing, and I do feel this is the case for Helluva Boss. Stories can only retain a viewer's suspension of disbelief insofar as the contrivances feel justified in universe. Why in one episode can Stolas enter the human world without his grimoire, possess several human beings living and dead, appear to them in his more powerful form, and then transform to his normal form and make a portal for him and the members of IMP to go back to hell through, but in another episode not only have no idea where the grimoire is, in spite of being able to conjure Asmodeus' book in episode 6 of season 2, say his powers are limited in the human world without his grimoire when he did all of this without it. If he has conjuration magic and telekinesis, why does he suddenly not have it in episode 2 of season 2? Why can he transform into his more powerful form in the human world in episode 6 of season 1 without his grimoire, but then say in season 2 of episode 2 that without his grimoire his powers are limited in the human world?
I'm afraid without my grimoire, my powers are just a tad limited in the human world.
It makes no sense. Suspension of disbelief can be broken when a work breaks its own established laws or asks the audience to put up with too many things that come off as contrived. And this is the case here, at least to me. Of course, different people will have different thresholds for what they're willing to accept in a work and what may break one's willing suspension of disbelief. There's a difference between asking an audience to go along with the impossible and accepting what's improbable, especially when you break the rules you already set in place. Without some prior detail justifying it, an audience is going to cry foul, "Ha ha, it's funny because he's an owl," and their suspension of disbelief is now at the forefront of their mind, which causes them to make videos like this one. Helluva Boss and Has-Been's rules are left vague enough that it gets away with a lot of inconsistencies with how Stolas' powers work, but this one was a bit too big of an ask to me. It's a pretty glaring inconsistency, not just in how his powers work, but an inconsistency within the story of the show itself. Sure, you could put it down to he's not in a right frame of mind, his daughter is missing. Yeah, that's true, but Octavia has the grimoire with her. If Stolas was able to find IMP in the human world in episode 6 of season 1, when Luna was with them and had the grimoire, why wasn't he able to find Octavia when she went to the human world and took the grimoire with her? If he was able to find IMP when they had the grimoire with them, then he should have been able to find Octavia the same way. I feel like the rules of his powers are changed purely because the story needed it to be this way. And besides that fact, Luna was able to find Octavia without the help of IMP or Stolas, so Stolas being with them in the human world in this episode was completely pointless. The only reason this happened was so we could see Stolas' human form. That's it. Blitz could have not told Stolas Octavia was missing, could have gone to the human world without Stolas, and they still would have found Octavia. An overpowered or OP character is defined by their excess of powers, a seemingly endless fountain of them. Stolas is not OP. He is not overpowered, but his powers are not defined, which results in him being seemingly OP. In my opinion, if you're going to give a character powers, they need to make sense within the rules of the world they exist in. You can leave an air of mystery, Stolas has his ways, quote unquote, but to me his powers and power levels seem to be adjusted to suit the plot of the episode. But yeah, this is hell, nobody cares, right? I'm Mad Munchkin, stay creative.